Welcome to a very special episode of Patriot Come Lately Talk Radio. Every year around this time, we mark the anniversary of that horrific day when 19 Muslim terrorists murdered over 3,000 innocent people. For most, this is a sad remembrance of a cowardly terrorist attack. For far too many, a very painful day. Tonight's show is dedicated to those who have lost their lives that day, those who lost their lives afterwards, as well as all those whose lives were impacted by the horrors of that day. Immediately following the outrage, signs appeared all over America stating, "We will never forget." Tonight I would like to honor that promise by retelling the story of someone who was closely involved.
And good evening there to my live listeners. Hello to those of you that are listening to the recording at other times, whenever, wherever you may be. Want to thank you for joining Patrick Come Lately tonight on this very special episode. Tonight we're talking about 9/11. As the intro said, 2 days ago we celebrated the remembrance of that day. And so much has happened in the last 10 years that our memories tend to dim, and there are forces out there who are trying to dim our memory. And what I wanted to do tonight is not a lot that I can do, but I felt that perhaps just helping to keep that memory alive would be one way to help honor all those that lost their lives, not just on 9/11 itself, but there have been so many affected by losing their lives, by losing family, and just all the negative effects of 9/11. And the way to honor it would be to go back and listen to that. So would like to talk about that. And to do that, I want to introduce someone that I got to know about a year ago, and I didn't realize it, but I found out slowly that he'd been with the fire department of New York, and he'd been there on 9/11, and slowly but surely managed to prise a little bit out of what happened then. And I finally asked him if he would come on the show. This is very difficult for him, and I really appreciate him coming on tonight, because I know it's going to bring up a lot of memories for him. And when we've talked, he's sort of indicated that's always been a very difficult issue for him, and he's had this invitation from others, more illustrious people than myself. And I see that John, that's going to be my guest tonight, is actually has dialed in, so I'm going to bring him in a moment. I know he'll be listening along on the phone line there. But John will be the first to disagree with me, I know, but I do want to say that I think John and many of his colleagues, they are in some ways as much heroes as those who we really count, the 343 fire department people that lost their lives, all the police and the Port Authority people. We count them as heroes, but I think John and people like him were heroes as well, because it was a difficult day, and I think it was very difficult to send people into what they were doing there, and I think a lot of the people on the ground who were not affected probably didn't want to, would have wanted to go in themselves, didn't want to send others. But they had a job to do, and they did their job, and some were lucky and some were not. And so I'm going to bring John in now. John, hello, are you there?
Yes, Stefan. How are you?
Very good. And as I said in my introduction there, John, thank you very much for joining us tonight. I know how difficult it is for you to sort of bring up these memories, but as I said, hopefully, after 10 years, this is one way that both of us can honor those that fell that day, and as I said, also afterwards. And I'd like to talk about that a little bit later, but
Sure.
First of all, can you give just a little bit of introduction of yourself, John? What were you doing at the time? What was your job? And then we'll kind of lead into the day itself. But what were you doing at that particular time, just before that fateful day?
Okay, I do have to say something first. That
Yes.
You are right. I do disagree with you as far as being a hero. Most of us were there just doing our job, and in my opinion, the heroes are the people that are no longer with us, whether firefighters, police officers, civilians. Everybody stepped up that day, and you hear many, many stories about civilians helping each other where they could have left and saved themselves, but they stayed behind. And I always say the best you'll see out of people is in an emergency, and we witnessed it that day. But that being said, I appreciate you having me on. And going back to September 11th, I was a lieutenant on the fire department that day. I had worked the night before. September 11th is my birthday. So that morning I came down from my office doing some paperwork, and I had realized I looked at the TV and saw the Trade Center burning. So a lot of things ran through my mind. At that point, terrorism wasn't one of them, but saying, "Wow, there's going to be a lot of guys hurt today," and just from the size of the fire, the amount of floors that were burning, and having worked in Manhattan after I was promoted, realizing at the Trade Center, if we had one full floor of fire, we wouldn't be able to put it out. So the water supply wasn't enough to put one full floor out, and you think how many floors we had burning. So I knew that wasn't going to work. But we watched it unfold, and the company I was with, they got called into Manhattan. Shortly afterwards, we got called in, and it's difficult. I mean, this whole weekend was difficult for many, many people. I would say most people. But like you had said in your introduction, I truly believe that this is good to remember it, because we can never forget what happened that day. Just the acts of heroism, selflessness. It truly, truly amazing by everybody that was down there, and it's something that we can't forget. And even though it's hard, not a day goes by where I don't think about it many, many times. But this is something that we can't forget. But getting back, we got called into Manhattan. My company was supposed to replace another company that was there. On the way there, I called the dispatcher and basically told them we were a couple blocks away, and they said remain in service. So that's what we did. And at that point, the first one fell. And then we regrouped from that. And when I got back in the rig, we had a ticket to go to West and Vesey. So that's what we did. We turned around, went down to West and Vesey, and I remember telling my guys, just don't even bring any hoses, because we're not putting the fire out. We're just going to try to save as many people as we can.
Yep.
It's so many things were racing through my mind, just trying to figure out how we were going to operate, and just to make sure that my guys were going to be safe. I remember walking towards the buildings, and I remember telling the guys, if there's nowhere else to go, jump under a rig. And unfortunately, there were many people killed doing that.
Wow.
Yeah.
If I can backpedal a little bit, Jordan, because you said you came down. You were at home at the time, and I know, but obviously the listeners don't. You live on Long Island, so
yes, I was actually working the night before, so
yeah.
I was in the office, so I was at work already.
Oh, you were still at work, and were you working on Long Island at the time? Was your company
in the city?
Oh, you were in the city. Okay,
yeah.
So because I was wondering how you got there so quickly. Because
no, we were in the firehouse. I was in the firehouse already from the night before.
Okay, and so then when the call came, because I know they kind of put out a call for just basically everybody, even people on vacation, everybody just to come in. That obviously came to your station, and you headed off downtown.
Well, we were called prior to that. Shortly after the second plane hit, they escalate the alarms, and then at that point they relocate more companies into Manhattan, and that's when we went. So right away, even before any recall, they had sent us. And
okay.
And I'm glad you brought it up, because it was an interesting ride to Manhattan, just listening to the radio, what was going on, what the companies that were down there, what they were dealing with, and it's just seeing people on the side of the road cheering us on as we were going in. I mean, it's truly amazing.
Oh, I didn't know that was happening. It's good to see they were noticing and appreciating it. Now, another technical question, if I may, and I don't want to kind of take away from the solemnity of the occasion, but for something like this, I know this was a huge thing at the time, and they pretty much got all the fire resources that they could to the spot, but were they actually holding any back? Because fires can occur elsewhere in the city as well. What do you know? What kind of did they have a backup like that, or did they just say, no, this is so big, we've got to get everybody down there, and forget about everything else?
Well, there were some companies that were held back. They were few and far between. What happened was a lot of companies from Long Island came into the city for mutual aid. So they manned the fire stations, the firehouses. They actually did so for a couple days, depending on where the house, where the company was, if the rig was damaged. So the Long Island, which are volunteer firefighters, when they came into the city, they helped us out a lot.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Okay. Okay. So and. One other thing you mentioned, John, as as you were part there, you told your guys, don't even bother to take hoses, because it's really just helping people. There's no way you're going to put the fire out. With a building that size, or not so much necessarily the size, but the height, I can imagine that it's pretty difficult to pump water up to that height and get any kind of pressure. Is that right? I mean, how were they really expecting it, even if there'd been a normal fire, not something as big as this? How did they handle that in those kinds of buildings?
Well, they have high pressure pumpers that can pump the water at a higher pressure than the normal pumpers that we use. So they have heavier fittings, and they would have more companies supplying the standpipes.
Okay.
From the street. So to boost the pressure up, to get the pressure up there.
Yeah. So for a let's say a fire on the floor, somebody drops a cigarette in a wastebasket or something, you could probably get enough pressure, water high up, even on the higher floors to effectively put out the fire. Is that right?
Yes. Yeah.
At least that's the idea.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So really, it was more a question of trying to get people out, rather than trying to put out the fire. Obviously, it was that big. But you arrived, you said, as the South Tower, the first one that went down, came down. Was there not an idea in your head, well, if that one came down, the other one can come down as well?
Oh, without a doubt. I saw it was interesting because I saw the South Tower start to go, and I saw the effects of the floors pancaking on each other and then just blowing out at the lower levels. When I got back in the rig, and then we went down to West Street and Vesey, I saw one of the chiefs there, and I explained to him, I said, Chief, this is what I saw. I was on the other side. And he said, that's a moot point right now. We're getting out of here. Everybody's going north. So I said, okay, that's what we're doing. Everybody's pulling back. We're going north. They knew this other one was going to come down. So we started heading back north. They were following the orders, and that's what we did.
Yeah. And I know that, they did recall a number of firefighters, but I remember hearing over the weekend, and there were a lot of very good tributes about the one chief that basically sent his team back out, but he stayed himself to try and help someone, and stories like that. I mean, that to me is real courage.
Oh, there's so many of those stories, and that things like that happen every day. At fires, guys they won't think about themselves. They'll think about the others they're working with, and that's what's so incredible about that job.
Yeah, and I don't think you're in the chat room right now, but I do want to say that there's appreciation there from other listeners, and saying that you and your and all firefighters, you guys are heroes, and we kind of focus on I think on firemen and police around 9/11 because so many did get killed that all on one day, but sometimes we forget that the firefighters actually do the same thing every day, and sometimes it's only one or two or three, but they still go in, they still they do something that a lot of us couldn't or wouldn't do.
Yeah, but it's something that we love to do.
Yep.
You talk to almost every fireman, this is what they live for. They love to help people. They love going to work. They want to be going to fires to help people. And it's just something that it's in us. This is what we enjoy doing.
Yep. So, you're there. You've seen the first tower come down. The chief, the commander that you've come across at that staging point said, "Okay, we're moving away because we know the other tower is going to come down." There wasn't very long between the two towers coming down, in the timeline. So, after the second one came down, what did you guys do then?
Well, after we got the order to pull back, as we were walking north on West Street, I ran into another lieutenant who I knew, and I explained to him, I said, they're pulling everyone back, and he says, I can't find my guys. So I said, all right, but, they're pulling everybody back. And he says, no, you don't understand. I lost my guys. I can't find them. So he was going back. And I said to him, all right, I'll go with you. So at that point, I turned to my guys, and I said, just go north on West Street. I'll catch up with you later. And at that point, I turned around to walk with him, and I pretty much said to myself, what did I just do? But the thinking on the fire department is you're not going to leave one of your brothers. And that's what it is. And as I started walking towards the North Tower, I just happened to turn around again, and one of my guys was with us. And I told him, I said, listen, I told you to go north. It's an order. And he says, I'm not leaving you. And we stood there for a bit, going back and forth, and eventually it turned into a yelling match, and then a shoving match, and he wouldn't leave. So I said, all right, let's go. Yeah. And we were walking towards the North Tower, and then I heard this noise like a jet engine, and looked up and saw the antenna coming, the top of the building coming, and we just took off. And I ran probably to the back of I was probably able to run about one rig length, and then jumped under the back of a truck company, and slid under there and waited. And I just waited, and you could feel all of a sudden the rush of air, and it got worse and worse, and I covered my head, and everything turned black, and it was a pretty unbelievable experience. They say you relive your life, and pretty much that's what I did, thinking that this is not how I want to die.
No.
But I couldn't even tell you how long I was under there for, and the ironic part of it is after the noise stopped and you could hear feel the rig shaking, it was being hit by stuff, and after that calmed down and it started to subside, it got a little lighter out, the dust was starting to clear. I got out from under the rig, and now I'm looking for my guy who was with me, who was nowhere to be found. So now my priority at that point was to look for him. I knew my other guys were safe, but I had to look for him.
Okay,
then,
now...
go ahead, I'm sorry.
Yeah, no, I'm going to jump in here for me. Let me just put in a quick station ID, and then let's come back to this, and I'll let you get a breath as well, John. So okay. We'll just take a 30-second quick break here, and then we'll be back.
Okay.
This is the Patriot Come Lately show with a special 9/11 Remembrance edition. If you would like to comment or have questions for our guests, please use the chat room or send me an email at stephan@patriotcomelately.us. Out of respect for my guest, we will not be taking any live phone calls tonight.
Okay, we're back there, John. So you've before we talk about going to look for your man there, John. For those of us that are not New Yorkers, don't know the streets. How far away were you from the actual foot of the North Tower when it came down?
Well, the North Tower. Basically, West and Vesey was the dividing line. That was the start. The south of that was the start of the Trade Center. There was a smaller building, 6-7 stories, and then next to that was the North Tower. The footbridge was over, that crossed over the West Street. So basically I was right at the Verizon building, which is on the north corner of Vesey and West. The northwest corner. I'm sorry, northeast corner. And then the Trade Center was just south of that.
Okay. So, I mean, you're talking about less than a block, really.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So, and you said there was the rush of air, because being that close, there must have been quite some pressure of air and all that dust and everything coming down.
Oh, it blew. I couldn't believe it. How and I was laying on the ground, and I couldn't believe how strong it was.
Yeah.
And how much dust and dirt and just debris that was there.
And one last question, and then we'll get back to your story. We all have seen those horrific pictures, as it came down and the people coming out, and then, they're just their whole bodies covered in dust and things. Did you have breathing apparatus with you at that time?
I did. I actually had to kind of loosen it and put it off to the side because it was hitting the bottom of the rig as I was getting under it, and I couldn't get the face piece on.
Oh, wow.
While I was under there.
Okay, so because, that's another thing that I heard from some of the people, that it was, I think one of the radio transmissions, listening to some of the FDNY radio transmissions, there was some civilian who got into a fire truck and was calling up and just saying, the dust, I can't breathe, because it's...
Yeah.
That must have been pretty bad as well. That's why I asked about whether because I know you normally carry some
right.
breathing equipment, but whether or not you'd had to use it or been able to use it. Okay, so you've been under the truck, under the rig. You said that was another fire truck there, was it, or just some?
Yeah, it was a fire truck.
So you come out from that, and you said, now you said you've been there with your guy from your team, but also another guy. The other lieutenant that you knew. So there were actually three of you, if you like, just when the North Tower started coming down. So, and then
right.
You said, were the two of you under the truck, or was it just you?
Well,
and you said one was missing. So,
well, one when I went under the back, a couple seconds later, someone else came under, and so I moved over. And I didn't realize it until a couple months later. It turned out to be my guy. We couldn't see anything, and we were talking about it, and I said, once the rush of air came, I said, oh, here it comes. And he says, wait a second. He goes, yeah, the rig I was under, that's what I heard. Somebody said that.
Oh, wow.
So then we put it together that was him, and but he had gotten out before I did, and then he was looking for me, I was looking for him, and then eventually I wound up finding him. And after I found him, I went to just make sure that my other guys were okay.
Yeah. Now they were. They'd been moving north as instructed. How far away did they end up being when the tower came down? Because I understand that the dust cloud actually went, quite a number of blocks away.
Yeah, there were a couple more blocks further north.
Okay.
Than I was, maybe 3 or 4 blocks more.
Yeah. Okay. So they were reasonably out of the way, not as close as you. Wow. Now, and my question earlier, there's you and your guy, but what about the third guy? Do you know what happened to him?
I didn't see any when I got out from under the rig. I couldn't find him, and I just felt that I had to concentrate on the guys I brought there. So that's what I was that was my priority. I tried to prioritize what I had to do.
No, that's understandable. Did you ever find him?
I didn't see him until probably a month later. I knew he was okay. I had heard that from talking to other firemen that he was okay. They had seen him. But I didn't talk to him probably for another month.
Okay.
Until after.
I have a question for you from the chat room, and it's actually from Big Dog Daddy, who's our favorite vet that looks after our Lucy, Molly, and Ginny that you've heard so much about. And he was asking, because I'd asked you how close you were to the tower when it started coming down, but he said that you said you'd kind of turned around and moved away. So he was asking, the rig itself, was it how much further away was it than when you actually noticed the tower coming down?
I was able to run probably one rig, and then got under the back of it. So
okay. Oh, just that. So the rig was basically where you were when it started coming down.
Yeah, the back of the next rig. I was probably able to run about one full rig, and then I figured I'm not going to outrun this, so I better just try to protect myself somehow.
No, and from the videos and things that they're showing, that thing moved, that cloud moved very very quickly. Being that close, in addition to all that dust that seemed to be coming down, was there much debris?
Yeah, I could hear it hitting the rig.
Mm-hmm.
When I got out from under the rig, the front of the rig was on fire. It was, the rig was damaged.
Yeah. You said the rig was on fire. Now that's an interesting question, because I would imagine, although I know there was a lot, obviously the floors were on fire as it came down, you would expect with the kind of the speed that building came down, that it probably would have extinguished any of the fire that was actually in the building, or is that not true? I mean, you're a fireman, so
no, there were pockets of fire.
There were?
Yeah.
Okay, so because you think and you were saying the air pressure and everything, so you kind of imagine it's like a big wind, and while wind can fan the fires, I was thinking, it'd be such a wind that it would more likely blow it out than feed it. But you're saying that there were pockets, were there?
Yeah, and it's kind of ironic. I was doing whatever I could, and I was trying to stomp out the fire on by one of the tires with my feet, which was kind of futile. So I just moved on.
Yeah.
But we're trained to do certain things, and having never been through anything like this before, you fall back on your training, and then you have to regroup and say, "Wait a second, this is ridiculous."
Okay, so you come from out from under the rig. You're looking for your guy. As you said, you found out later you'd both been under the rig, and then you head back to find the rest of your team. Correct?
Right.
Then what happened?
I just had to sit for a minute, and the only thing I could think of was now the other company from my firehouse. They were there before me, and what's going on there? So then I went to go look for them, and I went back to the site and started looking for them. Now,
there's not just you, of course, because I imagine there's a lot of other firefighters, police. I mean, once the building came down, did a lot of people go back there and start looking? What was the scene?
Yeah, well, we pulled back a lot of. Right after it happened, there was a lot of disbelief, probably shock, and some guys just trying to regroup in their minds, of what just happened. And so after just sitting there and just trying to take it all in, then it's like, okay, we got to go back to work, and that's what it was.
And of course, then it was an attempt to, a search and rescue attempt, and there were a number, not a lot, unfortunately, but there were a number of very lucky people who did manage to survive the collapse and that were able to be pulled out. Now, you'd been working all night, you said.
Right.
How long did you end up with this search and rescue work? I mean, how much longer did you go through that day?
I stayed there till 2 o'clock that morning.
Wow. So you were pretty much working, I'd say, 24 hours or more.
Yeah, I started 6 the night before.
Okay. Wow.
And then we got down there in the morning, and then we just stayed. We stayed as long as we could. It's interesting throughout right after the second tower fell. Guys, they're looking to get something to drink. One guy's drinking out of a hydrant. Another guy grabbed a water bottle. There was a case of water bottles that somebody was giving out, and like I said about the training, it's you kick in. We know it's terrorism, and then I'm telling you don't know where you got the water from. You don't know if they contaminated the water supply. So there's a lot of different things going through everybody's head, and just trying to make sense of the whole thing. It was overwhelming.
Yeah.
And just going on pure adrenaline, then after a certain time, you hit a wall, and we had to. I just had to get a couple hours rest and then go back and just try to figure out what's going on.
Yeah. So so you go back, you get some rest, and then you come back. If I remember rightly, again from what we saw on TV, just masses of people there sifting, moving the rubble, trying to find if there are any more people. How many days did you do that, John?
Too many. Actually, the next day, when I went back to my firehouse, they came out with a list of who was missing, and the company where I worked as a fireman before I got promoted, the whole company was missing.
Wow. So
I felt the best thing for me to do was go to that firehouse and see what was going on with those guys.
Mm-hmm.
So that's what I did. I stopped over there, and a couple of chiefs were there, and they were talking to the guys, and just trying to piece together what was going on, and just do the best we could.
Yep. Oh boy, that must have been very difficult.
It was because
yep.
I came from Proby School, which is a fire academy. I went to this firehouse, and a lot of great firemen were there, and all over the whole fire department. They lost so many guys that day.
Yep. But and that's, like I said at the beginning of the show, one of the things we we have to remember, what a tremendous sacrifice that was, both for individuals, but also things like a whole firehouse going. I mean, that's we have to remember that, and we have to keep that alive. I'm going to take just another 30-second break, just slip in a quick station ID in here again, John, and then we'll come back. And I'd like to talk a little bit about now, kind of the months after and the years after next, and, the whole thing about the first responder and the health and these bills that they got passed, etc. Let's talk about some of that.
Okay.
This is the Patrick Come Lately Show with a special 9/11 Remembrance edition. If you'd like to comment or have questions for our guest, please use the chat room or send me an email at stephan@patrickcomelately.us. Out of respect for my guest, we will not be taking any live phone calls tonight. And we're back with John, who was with the Fire Department of New York on 9/11 and very closely involved there. I have a question from the chat room, nothing in the email right now, but I do have a question from the chat room again, John, for you. And that was, what was the cutoff amount of time before the odds of finding people alive was called? Can you remember what happened? What that was?
Oh, I think it was about I want to say 2 weeks. I don't know if...
that long?
It might have been 1 week. I'm not...
Okay.
You know what? I'm just trying to remember.
It's let's say, a reasonable number of days as opposed to hours.
Yeah, we were looking... It was probably a week.
Okay, and because I can't remember. I think the last person they did pull out was sort of about 3 or 4 days afterwards, something like that. That they pulled out alive. I can remember that from the weekend program stuff. Okay, go ahead.
No, but down there, the people down there never gave up hope. They were. There was always that one chance that we were going to find somebody.
And we've seen that in maybe other places, earthquakes and things where all of a sudden they've given up hope, and then 2 weeks later they do find someone. So it's good. So before the break, I said want to talk a little bit about how the first responders have been treated. I know that's something that you also have an opinion on. We have touched on that when we've talked personally. But share with my listeners, I mean, we know that they did finally look after supposedly some of the health care, but then more recently we heard this thing that they were saying, well, they didn't think that the cancer deaths were higher than normal, and so that wasn't going to be covered. Things, and it kind of sounds like they're not really treating you first responders the way they should be.
Well, the fire department is doing, I believe, a good job with treating the firefighters. The other agencies, the police department, and other workers, construction workers that were down there. I don't really have a lot of knowledge with that. The way I look at it is when we were down there and the governor from New Jersey said the air quality is fine.
Mm-hmm.
That was ludicrous. That everybody down there knew the air quality wasn't fine.
Right.
But that wouldn't have changed anything.
No.
But for her to come out and actually say that, it does cause a problem, because maybe in the back of somebody's mind they think, well, they're telling me it's okay. But so that's taking that stand leads me to believe that that's the stand that the government is going to take.
Yeah.
They're going to fight tooth and nail to disprove, or they're not just going to come out and say, hey, you know what, all these cancers that these people have been coming down with at such a young age that normally don't appear until the late 70s, early 80s, they're not going to come out and just admit that, hey, you know, that is related.
Yeah.
They're having, I know a fireman just passed away about a month ago from esophageal cancer.
Yeah.
And one of the treatments was for GERD or reflux. They treat it with medication, because if it's not treated, just the reflux just burns the esophagus and it leads to cancer. That's known.
Yeah.
So I don't know how they can argue that these cancers, these illnesses are not related. Just the sheer amount of people that have been coming down with illness and dying. I think there have been 55 firemen who have died from World Trade Center related illnesses, and close to 50 police officers, roughly about the same amount.
Yeah.
That have died.
Well, hopefully they will get that sorted out, and a comment from the chat room. And of course, I know my listeners are, with our particular political leaning. Big Dog Daddy, the vet, said we know about believing what politicians say. So, yeah. One thing I noticed, there was a sort of leading up to this weekend, I noticed somewhere someone's made a call to actually make 9/11 a national day of remembrance, so maybe a national holiday. What are your thoughts on that? Do you think you and other firefighters think that's a good thing, or do you think it draws too much attention, rakes up too many memories?
I think I personally think it's a good thing. Like I said, my standing is that we can never forget what happened that day.
Yeah.
And I have a different mindset because of what I did for a living.
Yeah.
My whole thing, I used to tell the guys at work, complacency kills. Even just going to fires, if you get complacent, you're going to get hurt or killed. And that's my take on this. We have to remember, and we have to be prepared. And to honor the people that were killed that day, I think it's fitting to make it a national holiday, without a doubt.
Okay, well, believe it or not, we've come to the end of our time, John, and I think that's a very good point to leave it on. By the way, I agree with you. I think it would make a great national holiday. Hopefully we can get maybe a little bit of traction under that. I want to thank you very, very much for joining us tonight. It's been a very moving experience for me, and I hope for all my listeners as well. And I'm going to kind of play you out with somebody wrote a special song for this, a friend of mine down here in Florida, and has allowed me to play this song tonight, and I think be a very fitting way to kind of close down the show. So we'll play that, and then I have a couple of final words for the listeners, but I'd like to thank you, John. You're welcome to listen to the song, but whenever you want to hang up, that's fine. So thanks a lot, very, very much for joining us tonight.
All right, Stephan, thank you, and I appreciate what you're doing, getting the message out, and also honoring the people and that day. Thank you.
Okay, thanks a lot, John.
All right, Stephan.
bless the Americans and save them. And I pledge allegiance to the flag, one nation under God, with liberty and justice for all. And the rocket's red flare, the bombs bursting in air, gave proof through the night that our flag was still there. Oh, beautiful for heroes proved in liberating strife, who more than self the country loved, in mercy more than life. America, America, God shed His grace on thee and crown that good with brotherhood from sea to shining sea, from sea to shining sea. Light a candle in September for the heroes we will remember.
This is Stefan, your Patriot Come Lately. I'm going to fade the music out for this show, just leave it in the background there. This is the annual show, and we must never forget. There are forces, primarily in the regime, that are trying to make us forget. We have to embrace the people that did this to us. No, we should never forget. It's unbelievable
And I'd
how
like
much
to thank
they've tried.
Jennifer Renee for allowing me to play this song, Light a Candle in September. It's a beautiful song, especially written for 9/11, so my thanks for that. Please go to her YouTube and look her up, Jennifer Renee, or look up the song Light a Candle in September. I'm sure Jennifer would appreciate it if you could like the song and just show her that you appreciate the song as well.
We are coming to the end of the show. I would like to thank everyone who's been listening, for you are helping keep the promise that we will never forget. We must keep this memory burning like a candle in the night, hopefully lighting the way to a world where such evil and hatred no longer exists. My thanks again to John for a very moving story and his courage in telling it. I know it was difficult for him. Please remind your friends that they can hear the show at archives.patrickcomelately.us. Ta-ta for now. See you next week, same time, same place, and God bless America.